Hook opening. Have you ever looked into someone's eyes and felt like there was a fog covering them? Not because of illness, not because of fatigue, but because their heart was clouded by something deeper, an inner blindness, a veil of ignorance. I remember once meeting a young man in his 20s. On the outside, he seemed like he had everything going for him. He was ambitious, sharp, and full of plans. Every word he spoke was about chasing success, reaching the top, gaining recognition. To many, he appeared like someone with great vision, someone who knew exactly where he was heading. But the more I observed, the more I noticed something unsettling. His eyes never truly shone. They were restless, searching, and strangely hollow. It was as if he was running fast, but not really seeing the road in front of him. Maybe you've seen this too, or maybe you've even felt it yourself. That sense of running endlessly toward goals, chasing one milestone after another, only to realize that no matter how far you go, something still feels missing. There's an emptiness that no achievement, no title, no applause seems to fill. The Buddha called this state of age, ignorance, or more precisely, not seeing things as they really are. It doesn't mean being uneducated or unintelligent. In fact, some of the brightest minds, the most accomplished professionals, can still be trapped in ignorance. Because ignorance, in the Buddhist sense, isn't about the mind's knowledge, it's about the heart's vision. It is the fog that prevents us from seeing the truths that govern all of life, that everything is impermanent, that clinging brings suffering, and that there is no solid self to protect or glorify. Think about it. When you're caught up in ambition, chasing after wealth, fame, or approval, do you really see things as they are? Or do you see only what your desires project in front of you? Like mirages in a desert? We think we are running toward water, but we are really just exhausting ourselves on sand. That's why the young man's eyes looked so lost. Deep inside, he couldn't see reality clearly. His heart was blinded by the haze of wanting, fearing, and grasping. And here's the profound part. When the mind is clouded, the eyes reflect that cloud. You can see it in the gaze of someone weighed down by worry, or consumed by greed, or burning with anger. Their eyes lose their brightness because their vision has lost clarity. And this isn't just poetry, it's something you can notice in daily life. When you meet someone truly peaceful, their eyes carry a lightness, a quiet presence. But when you meet someone driven only by endless craving or ego, their eyes seem unsettled, almost as if they are never really present in this very moment. This is why the Buddha said that ignorance is the root of suffering. Because when we don't see reality clearly, we build our lives on illusions. We keep chasing what will fade, clinging to what cannot stay, and fighting for an identity that was never solid in the first place. The result? Restlessness, discontent, the feeling that no matter what we achieve, it's never quite enough. Let me ask you this. Have you ever reached a goal you once dreamed about, maybe a promotion, a financial milestone, or even buying that thing you wanted for so long, and then, after the excitement faded, you thought, is this all? That hollow moment is the taste of ignorance being revealed. It's the recognition that what you thought would finally make you whole cannot actually satisfy the longing of the heart. But here's the hopeful truth. Fog can be cleared. The eyes that once looked lost can regain clarity. The Buddha didn't just point out ignorance, he offered a way to dissolve it. Step by step, through awareness, mindfulness, and compassion, we can begin to see reality as it is, directly, without the filters of craving and fear. So maybe the real question for us is not, how much more can I achieve? But rather, how clearly can I see? Because when the fog lifts, when the veil of ignorance is gently removed, something beautiful happens. Life doesn't become perfect, but it becomes truthful. And in that truth, there is freedom. The young man I mentioned earlier eventually reached a breaking point. All his striving left him exhausted, and he began to wonder why nothing ever felt enough. That question became the doorway. Slowly, he turned toward practices of reflection and meditation. It wasn't instant, but over time, his eyes changed. The same person who once looked restless and hollow began to carry a quiet depth. His success didn't vanish, but his relationship with it transformed. He was no longer running blind. He was walking with open eyes. And that's the invitation for all of us. To pause, to notice, and to ask, am I really seeing clearly, or am I still caught in the fog? The Buddha's teaching reminds us that ignorance is not a curse we are doomed to live with. It's a mist that can be lifted. But we must first acknowledge it. We must dare to look into our own hearts with honesty and ask, what illusions am I chasing? What truths am I avoiding? So as we begin this journey together, I want to leave you with this thought. If the eyes are the windows to the soul, then what are your eyes reflecting today? Are they clear with presence, or clouded with the haze of endless striving? Because the path of awakening begins with a single step, the step of noticing the fog. Only then can we learn how to cleanse it, how to let the light return, and how to see life as it truly is. And that's what we will explore together. Step by step, uncovering how to dissolve the fog of ignorance and rediscover the peace that was always here, waiting beneath it all. The clouded gaze. Clouded eyes are not dimmed by the dust of the outside world, but by the dust that gathers within the heart. I want to share with you the story of a father I once knew. On the surface, he was a hard-working man, providing for his family, doing what many would call his duty. But there was one thing his children could never forget: his eyes. They were always red, always burning, like flames trapped inside. Every time anger overtook him, his voice rose, his fists clenched, but most frightening of all were his eyes. His children said that when he was angry, it was like looking into a fire that threatened to consume everything around it. Imagine being a child and meeting that gaze. The very person who should feel safest to you, the one who should shelter you with love, becomes the one whose presence you fear. The child doesn't just see anger, they absorb it. And slowly, they begin to associate love with fear, care with danger. That is the hidden wound that anger plants. The Buddha taught that anger is not strength, nor is it clarity. It is, in fact, a form of ignorance. Because when we are angry, we no longer see reality. Think about the last time you were truly enraged. In that moment, did you really see the other person clearly? Did you see their humanity, their pain, their complexity? Or did your vision narrow, your mind blur, and your eyes burn with only one story: I am right, they are wrong. I must fight. Anger blinds us. It makes the world appear black and white when in truth it is full of shades and depth. It convinces us that punishment will bring peace, that shouting will bring resolution, that fire will burn away suffering. But in reality, anger only adds more smoke, more heat, more ashes. And the eyes, our so-called windows to the soul, become mirrors reflecting this blindness. Have you noticed how someone's gaze changes when they are overcome with rage? Their pupils tighten, the softness disappears, the warmth vanishes. Instead of a window that lets light through, the eyes become like a pane of glass fogged up, distorted by the storm raging inside. Now, here's something worth reflecting on. If our eyes truly mirror our heart, then what do people see when they look into our eyes during anger? Do they see our true self, or do they only see the mask that ignorance has thrown over us? Let me bring this back to the story of that father. Over time, his children grew not only cautious but disconnected. They learned to avoid eye contact with him because they were afraid of what they might see. And here lies the great tragedy. The eyes that could have been a source of comfort, a symbol of love, became instead a reminder of fear. His ignorance, his inability to see the root of his own suffering, turned the window of the soul into a dark, clouded mirror. The Buddha described anger as a form of temporary madness. In that moment, we don't think clearly. We act against our own values, sometimes even against the ones we love most. But deeper than madness, anger is a symptom. It points to the ignorance at the core of our being. We don't see the roots of suffering, so we lash out at the branches. We don't see that impermanence is the nature of all things, so we try to force the world into our control. We don't see that there is no solid, separate self to defend, so we keep building walls and firing arrows. When we fail to see these truths, our heart fills with smoke. And when the heart is filled with smoke, the eyes lose their clarity. They no longer shine with compassion, they glare with suspicion. They no longer invite others in, they push them away. But here's something powerful to remember. Just as smoke can be cleared, so too can anger. Anger is not who we are, it is a passing storm. When we recognize it as such, when we breathe, when we pause, when we remember to look more deeply into the root of the pain, something shifts. The fire begins to cool, the smoke begins to clear, and the eyes regain their natural brightness. Think of someone you've met whose presence instantly calms you. Their eyes alone speak of gentleness, of understanding. That is not an accident. That is the fruit of a heart that has been freed, at least in part, from the fog of ignorance. So let me ask you, when was the last time your eyes became a mirror of your anger? And when was the last time your eyes became a beacon of peace for someone else? These are not just abstract questions, they are doorways into transformation. The truth is, Every glance we give carries a message. Our eyes can either deepen someone's wound or help heal it. They can either spread the fire of ignorance or reflect the light of wisdom. So here's the lesson. The eyes may be the windows to the soul, but ignorance turns those windows into clouded glass. If we want our gaze to be clear, to be compassionate, to be a source of healing for others, we must first learn to clear the dust within our own hearts. And this is not about perfection, it's about practice. Every time we pause before reacting, every time we breathe instead of shouting, every time we choose to see the humanity of the other instead of reducing them to an enemy, the smoke thins. The light returns. So the next time you catch yourself in anger, pause and ask, what is my gaze saying right now? Am I offering a window of love, or am I pressing a dark, smoky mirror against the world? Because the choice is always ours. And in choosing, we either deepen ignorance, or we begin to awaken. The grey lens. There are people who see life as though through a grey-tinted glass. That is ignorance. Let me tell you a story of a woman I once knew. To her neighbors, she seemed ordinary, quiet, dutiful, carrying the look of someone who kept her house in order. But inside her heart, there was a storm she could never tame: jealousy. She loved her husband deeply, but that love was entangled with constant suspicion. Every late night at work, every unanswered call, every passing glance he gave to another woman became, in her mind, evidence of betrayal. The truth was, there was no proof. Her husband had not given her a real reason to doubt him. Yet her eyes carried a darkness, always shadowed by mistrust. When she looked at him, it wasn't with love or gratitude. It was with a sharp, restless gaze, as if she were interrogating the world through her pupils. If you've ever been on the receiving end of such eyes, you know how heavy it feels. To live under suspicion is to live under a shadow. No matter what you do, you cannot prove your innocence, because the other person is not really seeing you. They are seeing only the projections of their own fear. And that is what ignorance does. It feeds illusions, it distorts reality, it makes us mistake shadows for truth. The Buddha taught that ignorance is not just about what we don't know, it is about the false stories we create when we fail to see clearly. The woman's suffering wasn't caused by her husband's actions, it was caused by her own mind painting a grey film over the world. Think about this. How often do we, too, look at life through tinted glass? Maybe not jealousy, but perhaps through fear, or through resentment, or through the lingering wounds of the past. We don't see things as they are, we see them as we are. If we carry suspicion, the world looks untrustworthy. If we carry bitterness, the world looks unfair. If we carry longing, the world looks incomplete. So here's the piercing question. Are we actually perceiving reality, or are we just staring into a mirror of our own ignorance? The woman in this story became trapped in her own illusions. She would sit up late at night scrolling through her husband's phone, desperately searching for evidence that didn't exist. Every innocent message became suspicious. Every delay became proof. She was, in truth, torturing herself. Her mind created ghosts that haunted her more than any external betrayal ever could. This is the cruelty of ignorance. It convinces us that the pain we feel is caused by others, when in reality, it is being created by the stories we weave inside. The Buddha compared the mind under ignorance to someone walking in the dark with a torch covered by cloth. The light is there, but it is blocked, and so the person stumbles, sees monsters in shadows, fears dangers that aren't there. Have you ever had a moment when you were absolutely sure of something, only to later realize you were wrong? That sting of embarrassment, that realization that you caused yourself stress for nothing, that is a small taste of how ignorance operates. Now imagine living every day under that haze, never questioning it. That's how suffering multiplies. But here is the hopeful side. Ignorance is not permanent. Just as the woman's eyes were clouded by suspicion, they could also be cleared by awareness. What she needed was not more evidence, not more reassurance, but a new way of seeing. The Buddha called this samdhihi, right view, or clear seeing. In modern words, it means learning to look with mindfulness, with awareness, with the courage to see reality as it is rather than as our fears shape it. Mindfulness is like cleaning that grey-tinted glass. Instead of assuming, we observe. Instead of projecting, we pause. Instead of letting fear run wild, we return to the present moment and simply ask, what is really here? What am I actually seeing? When the woman finally began to practice mindfulness, through breathing, through journaling, through learning to notice her own thoughts, she realized something remarkable. The problem was not her husband's loyalty. The problem was the lens she was using. Once she began to clean that lens, Her gaze softened. Suspicion gave way to understanding. Her eyes, once dark with jealousy, began to shine with a new clarity. And this lesson is not only for her. It is for all of us. Because each of us carries lenses, colored by our past, by our fears, by our wounds. And unless we recognize them, unless we take the time to clear them, we will continue to see life through a distorted view, mistaking illusions for reality. So let me ask you this. What color is the lens you're wearing today? Is it gray with suspicion, red with anger, or clouded with fear? Or is it clear, transparent, open to seeing life just as it is, without judgment, without projection? The Buddha's teaching is clear. If we want to be free from suffering, we must learn to see. Not just with our eyes, but with our heart. To see impermanence, to see the causes of our suffering, to see that much of our pain comes not from others, but from the stories we attach to them. The eyes, they say, are the windows to the soul. But if the glass of those windows is tinted, how much truth can we really let in? That is why we must learn to see with awakened eyes, with mindfulness, with presence. Only then can we break free from the prison of projections and step into the light of reality. So the message is simple. Ignorance clouds the lens, mindfulness clears it. And when the glass is clear, we finally see, not just the world as it is, but ourselves as we truly are. The empty gaze. Clouded eyes no longer reflect life, they reflect the darkness of the heart. I once met a man who had everything that most of us are told to dream about. He owned a beautiful house, his garage was filled with expensive cars, his bank account had more zeros than most people could imagine. Outwardly, he was the definition of success. If you walked into his mansion, the lights gleamed from crystal chandeliers, the furniture was polished, every corner of the house spoke of wealth. And yet, when you looked into his eyes, something was missing. They were hollow. Not angry, not jealous, just empty. His gaze carried no warmth, no joy, no peace. It was like staring into a room with all the lights on, but realizing there's no one truly home. I remember sitting across from him once, listening as he spoke about his investments, his properties, the deals he had made. His words were full of numbers and victories, but his eyes, they told another story. They revealed a man who, despite having everything, still carried a weight of discontent, of restlessness, of a hunger that nothing seemed to satisfy. Have you ever met someone like this? Or maybe you've even felt a touch of it yourself, that strange emptiness that follows achievement. You finally get the raise, buy the dream house, hit the milestone, and for a moment, it feels like bliss. But then, just as quickly, the glow fades. And suddenly, you're already reaching for the next thing, as if happiness is always one step ahead, just out of reach. The Buddha called this one of the deepest illusions of ignorance, the belief that happiness comes from possession, from having more, from holding tighter, from filling our lives with objects and titles. But here's the truth, it never lasts. Because everything we hold onto is impermanent. The car grows old, the house needs repairs, the bank balance fluctuates. And the more tightly we cling, the heavier our eyes become. Instead of shining with freedom, they grow dull with the burden of endless grasping. Look carefully at the eyes of someone who is deeply attached to wealth. They may sparkle for a moment when they acquire something new, but that sparkle fades quickly, replaced by anxiety. Will I lose it? Is it enough? How do I get more? The brightness of joy is replaced by the heaviness of fear. And fear, as we know, is a thief of peace. I once asked this wealthy man, "Are you happy?" He laughed, as if it were a silly question. He said, "Of course, I can buy anything I want." But the laugh didn't reach his eyes. And that's when I realized, you can fill a room with light bulbs and still be sitting in darkness if your heart doesn't shine. The Buddha taught that true happiness doesn't come from what we own, but from how we see. Wisdom, not wealth, is what clears the fog from our vision. When we see the impermanence of all things, we stop clinging so tightly. When we see the suffering that comes from endless desire, we loosen our grip. And when we let go, the eyes regain their natural brightness. Not the artificial shine of diamonds or chandeliers, but the deep glow of peace. Ask yourself this, if someone looked into your eyes right now, what would they see? Would they see clarity, warmth, and presence? Or would they see exhaustion, restlessness, or emptiness, like a flame that has burned out? We live in a culture that tells us money can solve everything. And yes, money can make life more comfortable. It can light up a house, put food on the table, open doors of opportunity. But money cannot brighten the heart. It cannot remove the fog of ignorance. It cannot buy the kind of peace that shines through the eyes of someone who truly understands life. I often think of this simple truth: money can light up a room, but only wisdom can light up the eyes. And isn't that what we all truly want? To live in such a way that when people meet us, they see a light in our eyes that no possession could ever provide? So maybe the real measure of wealth is not in how much we own, but in how much light shines through us. A wealthy person with empty eyes is still poor in spirit. But someone with little, yet with eyes full of peace, compassion, and clarity, that person is rich beyond measure. The man I spoke of eventually began to realize this for himself. After years of chasing and accumulating, he confessed one evening, "I feel tired. I've built everything, but I don't feel alive." That admission was painful, but it was also a doorway. It was the first step towards seeing that happiness doesn't come from adding more, but from awakening to what already is. And that's the invitation for all of us, to question the stories we've been told about success, to look into our own eyes and ask, do I reflect life, or do I reflect the darkness of endless craving? Because the truth is simple: money will always be useful, but it will never be enough. It can brighten your house, but it cannot brighten your soul. That light must come from wisdom, from awareness, from letting go of the illusions that weigh us down. So let us remember, true wealth is not in the bank, but in the heart. And the clearest proof of that is not in what we own, but in what shines through our eyes. The fading spark. Have you ever seen eyes that once sparkled, only to grow clouded over time? I once knew a little boy whose eyes could light up an entire room. They were bright, curious, alive. When he looked at the world, you could almost see his wonder spilling out through his gaze. He would pick up a rock and stare at it as if it held a secret from the universe. He'd chase a butterfly with laughter in his eyes. Nothing about his gaze was calculating or guarded. It was pure. But then, something began to change. As he grew older, the sparkle faded. It didn't happen all at once. It was subtle, like a candle slowly burning out. He started learning the rules of the world. People told him, "Be smart, don't trust too easily." They taught him how to compete, how to measure success, how to compare himself to others. Slowly, his once open gaze became sharper, narrower, clouded with suspicion and ambition. And one day, when I looked into his eyes, the light was gone. The same boy who once marveled at the stars now stared at his phone, scrolling endlessly, chasing likes and validation. His eyes weren't bad, they weren't cruel, they were simply tired. Tired from carrying expectations that never belonged to him. Have you ever seen this happen? Maybe in a child you once knew, or even in yourself. Do you remember when your own eyes were brighter, before life taught you to be cautious, strategic, ambitious? Somewhere along the way, many of us lose that innocent clarity. The Buddha taught that ignorance, what we call avijja, or not seeing clearly, is not something we are born with. No child is born with eyes clouded by greed or suspicion. Ignorance grows through habit, through conditioning, through the environment that shapes us. We are taught to grasp, to compare, to fear, to want more. We learn to cover over our natural light with layers of illusion. Think of it this way: our original mind is like a clear lake, reflecting the sky, the trees, the sun. But as we grow, the world keeps throwing stones into that lake. Each stone stirs up mud, each ripple distorts the reflection. And after years, the water looks cloudy, and we forget that underneath, it was always clear. I sometimes wonder, what would happen if we stopped throwing stones? What if, instead of adding more ambition, more calculation, more fear, we simply allowed the mud to settle? Wouldn't the water regain its clarity? Wouldn't our eyes return to that same brightness we once had as children? Let me ask you, when was the last time your eyes lit up the way they did when you were young? Was it while listening to music you loved? Was it when you held your child for the first time? Was it in a moment of silence, when you finally felt at peace? Those moments are glimpses of what has always been there, the natural light of the mind. The tragedy is not that we lose it. The tragedy is that we believe it's gone forever. But the truth is, our clarity never disappears. It's only covered. Like the sun hidden behind clouds, the light is always shining. We just have to clear the sky. One of the most profound teachings of the Buddha is this: we don't create enlightenment, we uncover it. Just like we don't make the lake clear, we simply stop disturbing it. And when we stop, clarity naturally returns. So maybe the question isn't, How do I get back the light in my eyes? But rather, what am I doing that keeps covering it up? Is it endless striving? Is it resentment? Is it fear of not being enough? What if letting go of even one of those habits allowed a little more light to shine through? I'll share a personal story. There was a time in my life when I was constantly chasing goals. Every day, my eyes were locked on the next achievement, the next success. And people said I looked driven, ambitious, sharp. But inside, I felt exhausted. Then one day, after a particularly stressful week, I sat outside at night and just looked at the stars. No phone, no agenda, no plan. Just me and the sky. And for the first time in a long time, I felt my eyes soften. I felt them clear, like the little boy I once was. That night reminded me, the light never left. It was just waiting for me to stop covering it. And maybe that's the invitation for all of us. To remember that the clarity, the sparkle, the innocent brightness, it's still within us. It doesn't matter how many years have passed, how many disappointments, how much ambition has clouded our vision. Underneath all of it, the original brightness is untouched. So the next time you look in the mirror and see tired eyes staring back, don't be discouraged. Don't say, I've lost it. Instead, remind yourself, I haven't lost anything. My light is just hidden. And then ask, what clouds can I clear today? What stones can I stop throwing into my own lake? Because here is the truth. We do not lose our inner brightness. We only forget it. And remembering, that is the beginning of awakening. So let us end with this thought. Our eyes can be dimmed by the world, but never destroyed. The clarity of childhood, the sparkle of wonder, it is still here. And the moment we choose awareness, the moment we choose presence, the light begins to shine again. We do not have to create it. We only have to uncover it. The eyes that never rest. Clouded eyes are often a sign of a heart that has never paused. I once sat in a cafe and watched a man in his 40s. He wore an expensive suit, his phone never left his hand, and his eyes, they never stopped moving. He scrolled, he typed, he checked his emails, then his messages, then the news, then his calendar, then back again. His coffee sat untouched. His food went cold. His body was present, but his mind was everywhere else. And when I looked at his eyes, I didn't see life. I saw exhaustion. They were heavy, dim, like a lamp left on too long, its bulb about to burn out. Maybe you've seen this too. Maybe you've even lived it. The world today praises business. We wear it like a badge of honor. If someone asks how you are, the most common reply is, busy. But have you noticed? The busier we get, the less alive our eyes look. There's a strange paradox here. We think constant activity proves we're living fully, but in reality, it drains the very spark of life from us. The more we chase, the more we scroll, the more we juggle, the more our eyes become tired windows showing not vitality, but depletion. The Buddha called this ignorance. Not ignorance as in stupidity, but ignorance as in not seeing clearly. We forget the present moment. We get lost in the fog of endless tasks, future worries, and past regrets. Our eyes mirror that fog. They lose their brightness because the heart behind them has forgotten how to be still. Think about it. When was the last time you looked at someone who was truly present? Maybe a grandmother sitting quietly with her grandchild. Maybe a monk walking slowly in silence. Or even a friend who really listened to you without glancing at their phone. Did you notice their eyes? Clear, calm, grounded. That clarity doesn't come from doing more. It comes from doing less. From pausing. From presence. I remember a time when I, too, lived like that man in the cafe. Every spare moment, I filled with something. If I was walking, I had headphones in. If I was eating, I was checking emails. If I was in bed, I was scrolling on my phone. I thought I was being productive. But when I finally caught a glimpse of myself in the mirror, I barely recognized my eyes. They were restless, tired, and scattered. And it hit me, I wasn't living. I was running. Running from silence, running from stillness, running from the discomfort of simply being here, now. The Buddha once said, mindfulness is the path to the deathless. Negligence is the path to death. The mindful do not die. The negligent are as if dead already. Strong words, but if you've ever looked at someone whose eyes have lost all vitality, you know what he meant. Life without presence is a kind of half-death. The body moves, the schedule is full, but the soul is missing. So what restores the light to our eyes? Mindfulness. Simple presence. When we stop running, stop scrolling, stop filling every silence with noise, our eyes begin to clear. It's like wiping dust from a mirror. You don't add anything new, you just remove what doesn't belong. I've experienced this myself. After a long week of non-stop work, I once went for a quiet walk at dawn. No phone, no agenda. Just walking. The world was still half asleep. The air was crisp. Birds were waking. And slowly, I felt my breath deepen. My shoulders softened. And when I caught my reflection in a shop window, I saw something surprising. My eyes looked alive again. Not because I had achieved anything new, but because I had finally returned to the present. And maybe that's the secret. It's not more doing, but more being. Our eyes dim when we forget life is here, right now, not in the next email, not in tomorrow's deadline, not in the next notification. Let me ask you, when was the last time you truly paused? Not a pause filled with distraction, but a real pause, just sitting, breathing, noticing. What if you tried that today, even for a few minutes? Would your eyes soften? Would they clear? Because mindfulness is not some mystical practice reserved for monks. It is simply remembering to be here, drinking your coffee and actually tasting it, talking to your partner and actually listening, sitting with yourself and not reaching for the phone. Each time we return to the present, it's like polishing the window of the soul. The dust of ignorance lifts, and suddenly, the world looks brighter, not because it changed, but because our eyes did. So perhaps this is the message. Our eyes reflect the state of our heart. If they are clouded, tired, restless, it may not be because life is inherently exhausting. It may be because we have not allowed the heart to rest. And the good news? Rest is always available. Right here, right now. So the next time you catch yourself rushing, scrolling, running without end, pause. Breathe. Look around. Let your eyes rest in the present moment. Because mindfulness is not just a practice, it's medicine. The kind that clears the fog, restores the spark, and lets your eyes shine again. After all, business can light up your calendar, but only mindfulness can light up your eyes. The difference between seeing and truly seeing. Someone with clear eyes may not truly see, while someone blind may already see more than most. There's an old story I once heard about a teacher who was blind. He had never seen the shape of a mountain, the curve of a river, or the face of the moon. But his students followed him everywhere, not because of his eyes, but because of his wisdom. One day, as they walked a forest path, the teacher stopped and said, "Be careful, the road bends sharply here, and beyond it, there is a cliff." His students were surprised. How could he know? Yet when they stepped forward, they saw the truth. The path indeed curved, and just beyond it, the land dropped away into a dangerous fall. The blind teacher could not see with his eyes, but he saw with something deeper. He saw with insight, with intuition born of awareness. And standing beside him was a young student with perfect vision, but his mind was clouded. Though his eyes were bright, his understanding was dim. He looked but did not recognize. He saw the world's shapes and colors, but he could not grasp its meaning. This story reminds me of something powerful. Sight is not the same as clarity. Eyes may work perfectly, but the heart may still be blind. How many times have we looked at something but failed to truly see? Think about everyday life. Have you ever rushed through a day, driving past trees, faces, even loved ones, and later realized you barely noticed them? Your eyes were open, but your awareness was asleep. That's a kind of blindness too. The Buddha called this ignorance, a blindness not of the eyes, but of the mind. Ignorance is when we mistake appearances for truth, when we see surfaces but miss the essence. A person may have 20/20th vision but still fail to see the root of suffering, the reality of impermanence, or the causes of their own unhappiness. And here's the paradox. A blind person may lack physical sight, yet if their heart is awake, if their mind is illuminated by wisdom, they may see far clearer than many who depend only on their eyes. So the question becomes, what does it mean to truly see? To see with wisdom means looking beyond appearances. For example, imagine you meet someone who is angry. If you only see with your eyes, you notice their harsh tone, their red face, their sharp words. But if you see with wisdom, you notice something else. Underneath that anger is pain, fear, maybe loneliness. That is the real vision. That is seeing beyond the surface. Or take success. Many people look at wealth, status, possessions, and think, that person has it all. But wisdom sees deeper. If their eyes are restless, if their heart is unsettled, then all the gold in the world cannot make them rich. To see with wisdom is to understand that happiness is not in what we hold, but in how we hold it. I'll share something personal. Years ago, I thought I was seeing clearly. I judged people quickly, based on what they wore, the jobs they held, the cars they drove. But over time, I realized those judgments were my blindness. The more I practiced mindfulness, the more I saw layers I had missed before, the quiet strength of someone who had little but gave much, the hidden struggles behind someone's smile, the courage it takes just to keep going in a world that can feel heavy. That shift didn't come from sharper eyesight. It came from softer, wiser vision. And maybe that's the real challenge for all of us. We live in a society flooded with images. Screens bombard us with pictures, videos, endless streams of things to look at. But do we see any of it? Or are we like the student in the story, eyes wide open, yet missing the truth? True vision requires stillness. It requires presence. It requires us to question what we see and ask, is this real? Is this the whole picture? What lies beneath? Because here's the truth. Ignorance does not live in the eyes. It lives in the way we interpret what we see. A person may look at the same sunset and see nothing more than fading light, while another sees impermanence, beauty, and gratitude for the gift of another day. The sunset is the same. The difference is in the vision of the heart. So perhaps we need to train a new kind of sight. Not just the sight of the eyes, but the sight of the mind. Not just what appears, but what is true. And that brings us to the heart of today's reflection. To see with the eyes is one thing. To see with wisdom is another. The eyes can be fooled by illusion, by appearances, by shadows and surfaces. But wisdom cuts through the fog. Wisdom sees things as they are, not as we wish them to be, not as we fear them to be, but as they truly are. So next time you look at someone, or something, pause. Ask yourself, am I only seeing with my eyes? Or am I seeing with my heart? Am I seeing with wisdom? Because at the end of the day, true vision has little to do with eyesight. The blind teacher in the story could not see the world's shapes, but he could guide his students to safety. His student, with perfect eyes, could not even guide himself. The difference is simple but profound. Seeing with eyes versus seeing with insight. So remember this. To see with the eyes is not the same as to see with wisdom. And in the journey of life, wisdom is the truest light. Knowledge is not wisdom. Eyes may shine with intelligence, yet the heart can remain in darkness. That is ignorance. Have you ever met someone who seems to know everything? They can quote books, argue philosophy, explain science, list facts and theories. Their eyes sparkle with intellect, but when you look deeper, you notice something missing. There's no gentleness, no humility, no peace. Instead, there's pride. The light in their eyes is not the calm glow of wisdom, it's the sharp glare of ego. I once knew a man like that. He had spent years in study, degrees on the wall, shelves filled with heavy books. He spoke with authority, and people listened. Yet when life tested him, when loss came, when disappointment struck, he crumbled. His knowledge could not comfort him. His intellect could not hold him steady. His eyes, so bright in debate, looked lost in silence. And I wondered, how can someone so full of knowledge be so empty of wisdom? This is the paradox. Ignorance does not always look like a lack of education. Sometimes ignorance hides behind knowledge itself. It wears a robe of information, it carries the weight of intellect, but it cannot see the simple truths of life, suffering, impermanence, the illusion of self. We live in a time overflowing with information. With a few taps on a phone, you can access more facts than a scholar in the past could gather in a lifetime. But here's the question, does that make us wiser? Or just more crowded in the mind? Knowledge is powerful, yes. But knowledge alone does not free us from fear, jealousy, anger, or sorrow. A person can memorize sacred texts and still live in despair. A person can understand the science of the stars yet remain blind to their own inner storms. Wisdom is different. Wisdom doesn't come from storing information. It comes from seeing clearly. It's the shift from the head to the heart, from concepts to lived truth. Let me give you an example. Knowledge can tell you that everything changes. A simple scientific fact: cells die, rivers flow, seasons turn. But wisdom is when you truly see impermanence, when you hold the hand of someone you love and realize, one day, this moment will not exist. That realization softens you. It teaches you to cherish, to let go, to love more deeply. That is not a theory, it is living truth. Or think of suffering. Knowledge can define it, categorize it, analyze it. But wisdom is when you face your own pain, sit with it, and through awareness, you see it clearly, without denial, without blame. And suddenly, the pain transforms into understanding, even compassion. That's wisdom. Sometimes I think about children. They don't carry much knowledge, but often they show wisdom beyond words. The way they laugh without reason, the way they forgive quickly, the way they see beauty in the ordinary. Meanwhile, we adults carry libraries in our heads, but we forget how to simply be alive. Isn't that a strange irony? So when the teachings say ignorance can hide in knowledge, it means this: if knowledge only inflates the ego, it blinds us even more. Because now we are not only ignorant, we are also proud of our ignorance. We mistake the sharpness of intellect for the clarity of wisdom. But they are not the same. Wisdom has a different quality. It's quiet. It doesn't need to prove itself. It doesn't boast. True wisdom humbles you. It shows you how small you are in the vastness of life, yet how connected you are to everything. It teaches you to see beyond yourself, beyond your desires, beyond your fears. So maybe the real question is, are we using knowledge as a tool to deepen wisdom, or as a mask to protect the ego? Because here's the truth: books can guide us, teachers can inspire us, knowledge can open doors. But the walk through that door, that's something only awareness can do. And when awareness deepens, knowledge becomes transformed. Facts turn into insight. Words turn into lived reality. Understanding becomes compassion. That's the moment when the eyes, once sharp with intellect, begin to shine with something softer, deeper, light not of pride, but of presence. So the reminder is simple, but powerful. Wisdom is not knowledge. Wisdom is the clear seeing that cuts through ignorance. Knowledge fills the mind. Wisdom frees the heart. And at the end of the day, it is not how much we know that matters, it's how deeply we see. Seeing the truth in everyday life. Clouded eyes are what we have when we lose the ability to see the truth in our everyday lives. I want you to picture this: a mother, sitting at the kitchen table late at night. The house is quiet, the children are asleep, but her mind is not. Her eyes are fixed somewhere far away, on tomorrow's bills, on next year's tuition, on the uncertain shape of the future. Her hands cradle a cup of tea, but she doesn't taste it. Her child's laughter from earlier in the day echoes faintly in memory, but she barely notices. Her eyes are heavy, dim, not because she doesn't love, but because she is lost in worry. And maybe you've seen those eyes before. Maybe you've even carried them yourself. Eyes that are open, yet not truly seeing. Eyes that skip over the present moment, chasing shadows of what might be. This is what ignorance looks like. Not the absence of intelligence, but the absence of presence. A blindness to the simple joys that are right here, right now. Think about it. How often do we live this way? Always leaning forward into tomorrow, or glancing back at yesterday, rarely resting fully in today. We worry about the future of our children, our careers, our health. We replay old mistakes, old conversations, old regrets. And all the while, life is happening right in front of us. The smile of a loved one. The warmth of sunlight on the skin. The miracle of breath moving in and out. But our eyes don't catch it, because they're clouded with elsewhere. I once heard someone say, the biggest tragedy is not that life is short, but that we miss so much of it while it's happening. Isn't that true? We can be surrounded by beauty, yet see only problems. We can have moments of joy, yet our eyes are elsewhere, already worrying about what comes next. The Buddha called this ignorance, avijja, not seeing things as they truly are. And one of its subtlest forms is this: not seeing the present moment. We imagine that happiness is somewhere in the future, after we solve everything, after we achieve enough, after life finally goes right. But the future never truly arrives. It's always out there, one step away. And so, our eyes grow dim, chasing what is not here. But what happens if we stop? If we truly pause? Imagine that same mother. Instead of letting her eyes drift into worry, she looks down at her child as he sleeps. She notices the tiny rise and fall of his chest, the softness of his breath, the way his hand curls around the blanket. In that moment, her eyes clear. The cloud of anxiety lifts. She sees not some abstract future she cannot control, but the living miracle right before her. And maybe, just for that moment, she feels peace. That's the power of presence. That's the gift of awareness. We often think enlightenment is something far away, something for monks in distant temples. But really, it begins right here, in the kitchen, in the car, in the quiet moments we usually overlook. Each time we bring our attention back to the present, it's as if we wipe a thin layer of dust off the mirror of our eyes. We see more clearly. We feel more alive. I sometimes ask myself, how many moments of my life have I missed because I was too busy living in my head? How many smiles did I overlook? How many sunsets passed unnoticed? How many chances to simply be happy slipped through my fingers because I was chasing a tomorrow that never came? And maybe you've wondered the same. The truth is, we don't lose our clarity forever. It's never gone. It's only hidden, like the sky behind clouds. Each mindful breath, each conscious pause, is like a wind that clears the sky, if only for a moment. And in that clear space, life shines again. So the teaching is simple, but not easy. Ignorance is when we fail to see the present. Wisdom begins the moment we return to it. Every small act of presence is like polishing the lens of our eyes. Drinking tea and truly tasting it. Listening to a friend and truly hearing them. Walking outside and truly feeling the ground beneath our feet. These are not trivial. They are awakenings in disguise. Because in the end, what else is life made of, if not moments? Not past, not future, just this. And if we miss this, we miss everything. So maybe the question isn't, what will tomorrow bring? Maybe the question is, what am I missing right now? And the answer, if you pause and look, might surprise you. Every moment of mindfulness is a chance to wipe the dust from our eyes. Every moment of presence is a chance to see again. So the next time you notice your eyes clouded with worry or lost in thought, take a breath. Come back. Look around. And see. Because life is here. And it's waiting for you to notice. Closing and opening. Bright eyes are those that know how to see with compassion. I once met a teacher, a meditation master, whose presence alone could silence a restless room. He didn't speak much. He didn't need to. People came to him burdened, anxious, confused. Yet the moment they sat before him and looked into his eyes, something inside them softened. His gaze was not sharp, not heavy, but luminous, like the still surface of a clear lake. You felt seen, not judged. You felt safe, not exposed. And what made his eyes different? They were not clouded with ambition, not weighed down by fear, not restless with desire. They were eyes cleansed of ignorance. Eyes that had looked deeply into suffering, into impermanence, into the nature of life, and had come out with wisdom and compassion. We've all experienced this, haven't we? Meeting someone whose mere presence calms us. It might be a monk, a grandmother, a close friend, or even a stranger. Sometimes, peace doesn't come from words. It comes from the energy behind the eyes. That's the thing. The eyes don't just see. They reveal. They're windows into the heart. You can't fake it for long. A person may wear the finest clothes, speak with great eloquence, project confidence, but if the eyes are restless, if they are haunted by fear or greed, others will feel it. On the other hand, when the eyes are gentle, steady, and filled with warmth, no performance is needed. The heart shines through. The ancient teachings remind us, ignorance clouds the eyes, but practice clears them. Every time we return to mindfulness, every time we choose kindness over anger, patience over impulse, understanding over judgment, we wash a little dust away. Slowly, gradually, the eyes regain their natural clarity. And that clarity is not cold, it is warm, because wisdom without compassion is incomplete. Imagine the difference. Eyes that only look outward, searching for things to grab, to own, to control, that's one kind of vision. But eyes that look both outward and inward, that see not only objects but also the human condition, that's another kind of seeing. That's wisdom. There's a saying, when ignorance ends, the eyes become a doorway to liberation. That's why the gaze of a sage, of a true teacher, carries such power. It's not magic, it's simply the absence of delusion. It's what remains when fear, ego, and greed no longer dominate the heart. What remains is compassion. And compassion is light. Think about it. What would our world look like if more of us carried that kind of gaze? Imagine walking into a workplace where, instead of eyes scanning for mistakes or weaknesses, you met eyes that radiated patience and trust. Imagine families where parents didn't just look at their children with expectation, but with understanding. Imagine leaders whose eyes didn't burn with hunger for power, but with care for their people. It sounds idealistic, maybe, but even if we cannot change the whole world at once, we can begin with ourselves. Each of us has eyes. Each of us has the capacity to clear them. Each of us has the chance, moment by moment, to choose how we see. The question is, do we see through the lens of fear and self-interest, or through the lens of compassion? When you look into the mirror, what do your eyes reflect back? Is it worry, ambition, fatigue? Or is there softness, patience, a willingness to let life be as it is? The truth is, no matter how clouded our eyes may seem now, clarity is always possible. It's not about becoming someone else. It's about returning to what was always there, the natural clarity of the heart. And that's why stories of teachers with radiant eyes touch us so deeply. They remind us of what we are capable of. They remind us that freedom is not about seeing more of the world, but about seeing the world more truthfully. So let me leave you with this thought. Eyes that see with compassion are eyes that no longer carry the weight of ignorance. They are not just windows, they are doors. Doors to peace. Doors to understanding. Doors to liberation. And perhaps the most important question is not, do I see clearly, but rather, do I see kindly? Because brightness is not only about clarity, it's about love. And in the next video, we will explore exactly that. How do we polish the eyes of the heart, day by day? How do we slowly, patiently, allow our gaze to become more compassionate, more peaceful, more luminous? Until then, maybe the invitation is simple. Today, look at someone, not with judgment, not with expectation, but with kindness. Notice how it changes not only them, but also you. Because sometimes, a single compassionate gaze can be the beginning of liberation.